The city buzzed with life as cars honked, street vendors shouted their wares, and people hurried past each other without a second glance. Amidst the chaos, Lila sat on the cold pavement near an old subway station, her knees pulled close to her chest. Her once bright eyes now reflected sadness that seemed too heavy for someone so young. At just 18 years old, she had already seen more pain than most people experience in a lifetime. Lila's story wasn't always this way. She used to live in a small but happy home with her parents and younger brother. They didn't have much, but they made up for it with love and laughter. Every evening, her mother would cook simple meals while her father told funny stories about his day at work. Her little brother, Sam, was her best friend, always tagging along wherever she went. But everything changed one rainy night when their car skidded off the road during a storm. Lila survived, but her family did not. After the accident, Lila found herself alone in the world. With no relatives to take her in and overwhelmed by grief, she dropped out of school and eventually ended up on the streets. Life there was harsh, endless hunger, freezing nights, and the constant fear of danger lurking around every corner. Yet through it all, Lila clung to one thing: hope. Deep inside, she believed that someday things would get better. Every morning, she woke up before sunrise and wandered the streets, searching for food or odd jobs to earn a few coins. Sometimes kind strangers gave her spare change or offered her leftovers from restaurants. Other times, she faced rejection and harsh words. Still, Lila never lost her gentle spirit. She smiled at children playing in parks, thanked those who helped her, and even shared what little she had with others less fortunate than herself. One chilly afternoon, as rain drizzled over the city, Lila took shelter under the awning of a bakery. The smell of fresh bread wafted into the air, making her stomach growl loudly. A woman exiting the shop noticed her sitting there, shivering in her worn-out sweater. "Here," the woman said softly, handing Lila a warm baguette wrapped in paper. Tears welled up in Lila's eyes as she whispered a heartfelt, "Thank you." It wasn't just the food. It was the kindness behind the gesture that touched her soul. As the days turned into weeks, Lila began to find solace in small moments like these. She started sketching pictures on scraps of paper she found in trash bins, using a pencil stub she'd picked up somewhere. Drawing became her escape, way to express the emotions she couldn't put into words. Her sketches were simple yet beautiful, capturing scenes of nature, families holding hands, and sunsets over the city skyline. Passers-by occasionally stopped to admire her work, leaving coins or encouraging words. Though life remained difficult, these fleeting connections reminded Lila that humanity still held goodness. Unbeknownst to her, fate was about to step in. One crisp morning, as Lila sat drawing near a park bench, a man in an expensive suit walked by. He paused for a moment, glancing at her artwork. Something about her determination and the warmth in her smile caught his attention. Little did either of them know, their lives were about to intertwine in ways neither could have imagined. For now, though, Lila continued to fight her battles quietly, dreaming of a brighter future while surviving the lonely streets. And somewhere deep down she held on to the belief that maybe, just maybe, her luck was about to change. The man in the expensive suit who had paused to glance at Lila's artwork was none other than Ethan Carter, a self-made millionaire known for his sharp mind and even sharper business deals. Ethan wasn't someone who usually noticed people like Lila. His world revolved around boardrooms, high-stakes negotiations, and luxurious penthouses, but something about her caught his eye that morning, a quiet determination in the way she focused on her sketches as if nothing else mattered. Ethan hesitated for a moment before approaching her. "These are yours?" he asked, pointing to the drawings scattered on the ground beside her. Lila looked up, startled by the deep voice cutting through her concentration. She nodded shyly, unsure of what to say. Her heart raced. She was used to being ignored or dismissed by strangers, not spoken to by men in tailored suits. "Impressive," Ethan said after studying one of the sketches closely. It was a drawing of two children flying kites under a golden sunset, their laughter almost tangible in the lines of pencil. "You've got talent," Lila blushed, unused to compliments from anyone. let alone someone who seemed so out of place in her world. "Thank you," she murmured softly, clutching her sweater tighter against the morning chill. Ethan crouched down to get a better look at her work. "Do you sell these?" he asked casually, though there was curiosity in his tone. "No," Lila replied quickly, shaking her head. "I just draw them because it makes me feel better." Her honesty struck a chord within him. Ethan had spent years building his empire, climbing ladders others deemed impossible to scale. Yet despite all his success, he often felt empty inside, a void no amount of money could fill. Seeing Lila's art reminded him of simpler times when life wasn't about profits and power, but about joy and connection. "Well, I'd like to buy one," Ethan said firmly, pulling out his wallet. Before Lila could protest, he handed her a crisp $50 bill. Her eyes widened in shock. It was more money than she'd seen in weeks. "I can't take this," she stammered, trying to push the bill back toward him. "It's just a drawing." "It's worth every penny," Ethan insisted with a warm smile. "Keep it. You deserve it." For the first time in months, Lila felt seen, not as a homeless girl struggling to survive, but as someone with value, someone whose efforts mattered. Gratitude swelled in her chest and she managed a small smile. "Thank you," she whispered again, clutching the money tightly. As Ethan stood up to leave, he glanced back at her. There was something about her resilience, her quiet strength, that lingered in his thoughts long after he returned to his sleek office downtown. That evening, as he sat behind his mahogany desk reviewing contracts, his mind kept drifting back to the girl with the kind eyes and the remarkable sketches. Meanwhile, Lila couldn't stop thinking about the stranger either. She wondered why someone like him would bother talking to someone like her. Was it pity, curiosity, or something else entirely? Whatever the reason, their brief encounter left her feeling hopeful in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. Later, that night as she curled up in her usual spot near the subway station, Lila decided to use some of the money Ethan gave her to buy colored pencils from a nearby store. For the first time, she dreamed of creating art that wasn't just black and white, art that reflected the colors of hope blooming inside her. Unbeknownst to both of them, this chance meeting was only the beginning. Ethan found himself drawn to the idea of seeing Lila again, while Lila dared to imagine a future where kindness might lead to opportunities she never thought possible. Their worlds were vastly different, yet somehow they had crossed paths, and neither of them would ever be the same. The next morning, Ethan woke up with Lila still on his mind. He wasn't sure why. He met dozens of people every day, yet none stayed with him the way she did. Perhaps it was her quiet dignity despite her circumstances, or perhaps it was the way her art seemed to capture emotions he hadn't felt in years. Whatever it was, he couldn't shake the feeling that their meeting had been more than just coincidence. That afternoon, instead of heading straight to another meeting, Ethan decided to take a detour. He found himself walking back to the park, where he'd first seen Lila. As he approached the bench near the fountain, he spotted her sitting there, sketching intently. Her face lit up as sunlight filtered through the trees, and for a moment, Ethan simply stood there watching her. She looked peaceful, almost happy, despite everything she had been through. "Back again?" Lila's voice startled him out of his thoughts. She had noticed him standing there and smiled shyly, her pencil hovering over her paper. Ethan chuckled, slightly embarrassed at being caught staring. "I couldn't stay away," he admitted honestly, surprising even himself. "Your art stuck with me." Lila tilted her head, intrigued. "Really? Why?" "There's something real about it," Ethan replied, sitting down beside her. "It's raw, honest, like you're pouring your soul onto the page." She blushed at the compliment, but didn't say anything. Instead, she went back to her drawing, adding soft shading to a tree in the background. Ethan watched her work silently for a few moments before speaking again. "What made you start drawing?" he asked curiously. Lila paused, her hand resting on the paper. "It helps me forget," she said softly. "When life gets too hard, I draw what I wish things could be. Happy families, sunny days, places far away from here. She gestured vaguely around them. It's like my own little escape. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. He understood the need for an escape better than most. His wealth may have shielded him from physical hardships, but it hadn't protected him from loneliness or the emptiness that came with chasing success relentlessly. Listening to Lila talk about her dreams reminded him of how much he'd lost sight of his own. You know, Ethan said after a pause, you should keep doing this. You have real talent. Elila tilted her head, intrigued. Really? Why? There's something real about it, Ethan replied, sitting down beside her. It's raw, honest, like you're pouring your soul onto the page. She blushed at the compliment but didn't say anything. Instead, she went back to her drawing, adding soft shading to a tree in the background. Ethan watched her work silently for a few moments before speaking again. What made you start drawing? He asked curiously. Lila paused, her hand resting on the paper. It helps me forget, she said softly. When life gets too hard, I draw what I wish things could be. Happy families, sunny days, places far away from here. She gestured vaguely around them. It's like my own little escape. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. He understood the need for an escape better than most. His wealth may have shielded him from physical hardships, but it hadn't protected him from loneliness or the emptiness that came with chasing success relentlessly. Listening to Lila talk about her dreams reminded him of how much he'd lost sight of his own. You know, Ethan said after a pause, you should keep doing this. You have real talent. Don't think anyone would care, Lila replied, with a shrug, though there was a flicker of doubt in her eyes. It's not like I can sell these on the street. Why not try selling them online? Ethan suggested. There are platforms where artists share their work. People love unique pieces like yours. Lila shook her head. I don't have a phone or a computer, she explained. And even if I did, I wouldn't know how to use them. Ethan hesitated for a moment before making a decision. What if I helped you get started? He offered. I could set up an account for you, teach you how to upload your work, if you want, of course. Lila stared at him, stunned. Why would you do that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because I believe in giving people a chance, Ethan said simply. And because I think the world needs to see your art. For a long moment, Lila didn't respond. The idea of sharing her work with strangers felt both exciting and terrifying. What if no one liked it? What if they laughed at her? But then she remembered the warmth in Ethan's eyes when he looked at her sketches, the genuine admiration, and she nodded slowly. Okay, she agreed, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. Let's try. Over the next hour, Ethan stayed with Lila, helping her gather her best drawings and planning how they would digitize them. For the first time in months, Lila allowed herself to dream bigger than survival. Maybe, just maybe, her art could open doors she never knew existed. As the sun began to set, Ethan stood up reluctantly. I'll come back tomorrow with a scanner, he promised. We'll make this happen. Thank you, Lila said, her gratitude shining brighter than ever. Ethan walked away. He realized he hadn't felt this alive in years. Helping Lila gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't known he was missing. And for Lila, this second meeting marked the beginning of a new chapter, a glimmer of hope in a life that had been so dark for so long. Part 1. 450 words kaleko, or interesting hunachea, or third-person style malekniha, or simple basic English. I don't use any violated word, so please avoid any violated content. As the weeks passed, Lila's art gained more attention than either she or Ethan had anticipated. Her online gallery attracted not only buyers but also admirers who left heartfelt comments praising her talent and resilience. Local news outlets even picked up her story, dubbing her the street artist with a heart of gold. Suddenly, Lila found herself thrust into the spotlight, a place she never imagined being. At first, the recognition thrilled her. Strangers approached her in the park to congratulate her, and some even offered donations or invitations to showcase her work at local galleries. One gallery owner even proposed hosting an exhibition exclusively for her pieces. It was a dream come true, or so it seemed. But fame came with its own set of challenges. Some people questioned how a homeless girl could produce such beautiful artwork, accusing her of lying about her background or exaggerating her struggles. Online trolls left cruel comments beneath her posts, mocking her circumstances and dismissing her success as a publicity stunt. The negativity stung deeply, shaking Lila's confidence. One particularly rough day, after reading yet another harsh comment, Lila sat on her usual bench near the subway station, tears streaming down her face. She felt overwhelmed by doubt and fear. What if these people were right? What if she didn't deserve any of this? Ethan noticed something was wrong when he arrived later that afternoon. Instead of her usual warm smile, he found her hunched over, staring blankly at her hands. Without saying a word, he sat beside her and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "What's going on?" he asked gently. Lila hesitated before pulling out her phone and showing him the hateful messages she'd received. "I don't know why they're saying these things," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Maybe I should stop doing this. Maybe I'm not good enough." Ethan's expression hardened as he read through the comments. He hated seeing her hurt like this. "Don't let them get to you," he said firmly. "Their words don't define you. Your art does, and so does your heart." "But what if they're right?" Lila countered, tears welling up again. "What if I'm just fooling myself?" "You're not," Ethan insisted. "Look at everything you've accomplished. Already, you've inspired people, touched their lives with your work. That's real, Lila. Those trolls, they're just jealous because they'll never create something as meaningful as you have." His words struck a chord within her. Slowly she nodded, wiping away her tears. "You really believe in me, don't you?" "With all my heart," Ethan replied without hesitation. "And so do the people who love your art. Focus on them, not the noise." Determined to help her move forward, Ethan suggested they plan her upcoming gallery exhibition together. He helped her select her best pieces, frame them professionally, and write captions that told her story authentically. The process reignited her passion, reminding her why she started drawing in the first place. On the night of the exhibition, Lila stood nervously in the crowded gallery, clutching Ethan's arm for support. Dozens of people milled about, admiring her artwork and leaving notes of encouragement in a guest book. When the gallery owner introduced her and shared her journey, the room erupted into applause. For the first time in years, Lila felt truly seen, not as a homeless girl struggling to survive, but as an artist whose work mattered. Afterward, Ethan pulled her aside. "See? This is what you deserve," he said with a proud smile. "All those doubters? Forget them. You've proven yourself tonight." Tears filled Lila's eyes once more, but this time they were tears of joy. She realized then that while challenges would always exist, she had someone in her corner who believed in her unconditionally, and that made all the difference. Little did they know, however, that their bond was about to be tested in ways neither of them expected. As Lila's star continued to rise, whispers began circulating about Ethan's involvement in her success, and not everyone approved. As Lila's success continued to grow, so did the whispers about Ethan's role in her journey. Some praised him as a kind-hearted mentor who had given a struggling artist a chance. Others, however, accused him of using Lila for publicity or questioned his motives, suggesting that his involvement was less altruistic and more self-serving. The media latched onto these rumors, speculating endlessly about their relationship. At first, Lila dismissed the gossip. She trusted Ethan completely, knowing how much he had done for her without asking for anything in return. But as the criticism grew louder, doubt began to creep into her mind. Late at night, lying awake on her makeshift bed near the subway station, she couldn't help but wonder if people were right. Was Ethan helping her out of genuine kindness or because it made him look good? One evening, after another long day of interviews and gallery visits, Lila decided to confront him. They met at their usual spot in the park, where they often talked. about her progress and future plans. This time, though, the atmosphere felt heavier than usual. "Ethan," Lila began hesitantly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," he replied, sensing her unease. "What's on your mind?" She took a deep breath before speaking. "Do you ever think maybe people are right? About us, I mean. That you're only helping me because it makes you look good?" Ethan froze, visibly stunned by her question. For a moment he didn't say anything, his eyes searching hers. Then with a heavy sigh he leaned back against the bench. "I won't lie to you, Lila," he said finally. "When I first saw your art, part of me wanted to help because I thought it might bring some positivity into my own life. I've spent years chasing success, but it left me feeling empty. Helping you reminded me of what truly matters: connection, purpose, hope." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "But that doesn't mean my intentions aren't genuine. Everything I've done for you has been because I believe in you, not because of how it makes me look. You have to trust that." Lila nodded slowly, feeling a mix of relief and guilt for doubting him. Still, the tension between them lingered, a reminder of how fragile trust could be when tested by outside forces. Over the next few weeks, their dynamic shifted subtly. Ethan became more reserved, perhaps worried about overstepping boundaries or fueling further speculation. Meanwhile, Lila threw herself into her work, determined to prove that her success wasn't dependent on anyone else. She started experimenting with new techniques, incorporating bold colors and abstract designs into her sketches. Her evolving style earned even more acclaim, but the distance growing between her and Ethan weighed heavily on her heart. Then came the day when everything changed. A tabloid published an article claiming that Ethan had secretly invested money into promoting Lila's art, framing their partnership as a calculated business move rather than a heartfelt gesture. The headline screamed, "Millionaire manipulates homeless girl's rise to fame." Lila read the article in stunned silence, her hands trembling. She knew it wasn't true, but the damage was done. Public opinion turned against them almost overnight. Supporters of her art accused her of being a pawn in Ethan's game, while critics mocked her for relying on his wealth instead of standing on her own. That evening, Ethan called her, his voice strained. "We need to talk," he said simply. They met at the park one last time, the place where their journey had begun. The air was thick with unspoken emotions as they sat side by side, avoiding each other's gaze. "I'm sorry," Ethan said quietly. "I never meant for any of this to happen. If stepping back is what's best for you, then I'll do it. Your art deserves to shine on its own." Lila stared at him, torn between gratitude and sadness. "It's not fair," she whispered. "None of this is your fault." "But it's happening anyway," Ethan replied, his tone resigned. "And I don't want to hold you back anymore." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The bond they had built over months of shared dreams and struggles now felt like a fragile thread, stretched thin by circumstances beyond their control. As they parted ways that night, both wondered if their friendship, and the hope it represented, could survive the storm raging around them. Weeks turned into months, and the distance between Lila and Ethan grew wider. Though their meetings became rare, Lila continued to pour her heart into her art. She rented a small studio apartment with her earnings, a modest but warm space that finally felt like home. For the first time in years, she had walls to call her own, windows that let sunlight stream in, and a bed where she could sleep without fear of the cold. Yet despite her newfound independence, something was missing. The laughter they once shared, the encouragement he gave her when doubt crept in, it all lingered in her memories like an unfinished melody. She missed Ethan more than she cared to admit, but pride kept her from reaching out. She told herself she needed to stand on her own 2 feet to prove to the world and to herself that she wasn't just a product of his generosity. Ethan, too, struggled with their separation. He threw himself into work, attending endless meetings and signing deals that would have thrilled him before. But now, success felt hollow. Every evening, as he returned to his penthouse overlooking the city, He couldn't help but think of Lila. Her resilience, her kindness, the way she saw beauty in places others overlooked. Without realizing it, she had become his anchor, grounding him to what truly mattered. And now, without her, he felt adrift. One rainy afternoon, while reviewing contracts at his desk, Ethan's assistant handed him an invitation. It was for Lila's solo exhibition titled Finding Light. His heart skipped a beat. He hadn't known she was planning another show, let alone one so ambitious. The thought of seeing her again filled him with both excitement and apprehension. Would she even want to speak to him after everything that had happened? On the night of the exhibition, Ethan arrived late, slipping quietly into the crowded gallery. Paintings and sketches adorned the walls, each piece telling a story of struggle, hope, and triumph. At the center of the room stood Lila, radiant, in a simple blue dress speaking to a group of admirers. Her confidence amazed him. She seemed stronger, surer of herself than ever before. When the crowd dispersed, Ethan approached her cautiously. "Lila," he said softly, his voice barely audible over the hum of conversation. She turned, startled, then smiled when she saw him. "Ethan," she replied, her tone warm but guarded. "I didn't think you'd come." "I wouldn't miss it," he admitted, gesturing to the artwork around them. "Your talent is undeniable. This is incredible." "Thank you," she said, her cheeks flushing. After a pause, she added, "I owe you a lot, you know. More than I can ever repay." "You don't owe me anything," Ethan insisted. "You did this, all of this on your own." They stood there for a moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Finally, Lila broke the silence. "I've been thinking, maybe we shouldn't let other people decide what our friendship means. What we had, it was real, right?" "It was," Ethan agreed, his eyes softening. "And it still is, if you'll have me." A smile spread across Lila's face, lighting up the room brighter than any painting could. "Of course I will," she said. "But this time, no stepping back. We face whatever comes next. Together." From that day forward, their bond deepened, built not on dependency, but mutual respect and understanding. Lila continued to create art that inspired thousands, while Ethan found renewed purpose in supporting causes that helped those less fortunate. Together they proved that kindness and connection could overcome even the toughest challenges. As they walked out of the gallery hand in hand, rain falling gently outside, Lila glanced up at Ethan. "You know," she said with a grin, "this feels like the start of something new." He smiled back, his heart full. "It is." And for the first time in a long while, they both believed it. This final part brings closure to their journey, emphasizing themes of reconciliation, growth, and the enduring power of human connection. It leaves readers with a sense of hope and fulfillment, tying together their emotional arcs in a satisfying and uplifting conclusion.